Okay, so the slides are visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, I guess we have already seen the syllabus of a BTech, right? And I have also discussed the syllabus of MTech in the last class. So I'm not going to put time into it. Apart from that, since new students have joined this class, so these are the books which they can refer for this particular subject. So I'll pass the slides so that they can refer the books and other things. Then we have seen what exactly we mean by a distributed system. Okay, so very briefly, I'm going to define it. We can define a distributed system as a set of hardware or software components which may be partially separated, and all those components are networked together and they can accomplish a task with the help of message passing, or you can say they can communicate and coordinate using message passing. And the moment you talk about a distributed system, then you ought to have the characteristics of the system. So basically, there are three characteristics: concurrency, no global clock, and independent failures. So again, all these characteristics have been discussed in detail in the earlier classes. So the students who have joined uh, today only, so I'll pass the earlier lectures to them so that they can understand these concepts. Then we have seen the examples of distributed system, right? This is the map of the internet which has been taken in 2003 and 2005. So this is again an example of your distributed system. Then the connection of users or the interconnection of users of Facebook is again an example of a distributed system. Then we have seen in detail the fundamental characteristics which were your concurrency, no global clock, and independent failures, right? Thereafter, we understood why distributed systems are necessary, or you can say what was the primary goal of a distributed system. So we discussed that the primary goal of the distributed system to encourage the sharing of resources, right? If we have got number of limited resources and the number of users are more, then how all those users can get the access to the limited number of resources, right? So this is the primary goal of a distributed system, right? So the resources in hardware terms may be your disk, printers, and all, and in terms of software, it may be files, databases, or other shared data objects, right? Then we discuss each of the example of distributed system in detail, which can be your internet, which can be your intranet, right? And this is how the intranet is connected to the rest of the world. Okay, so in this particular diagram, we can see that the router is helping this particular lane to connect it to the rest of the internet, right? Then we understood in the last class what we mean by mobile and ubiquitous computing. The moment we talk about ubiquitous computing, then it means that we are talking about the variety of devices. And the moment we talk about mobile computing, that means you've got devices which are capable of doing computation at any place. These are not place bounded devices. Okay, so it means that it is not necessary that you have to keep these devices at a certain place in order to perform any type of computation, right? This is what we mean by mobile computing. Then resources, services, all these things we discuss, right? Okay. Then we also discuss the design challenges of distributed system in detail, and these challenges were heterogeneity, concurrency, scalability, transparency, openness, failure handling, and security. So, any of you who can define all these challenges briefly? Anybody? Anybody from BTech? Within 2 or 3 minutes? Okay, let me call out the name. Gaurav Singh,
Yes, sir.
can you describe these challenges briefly?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. You're audible. Go on. Yeah, Gaurav, speak up.
Yes, sir.
Can you describe these design challenges of distributed system?
Mm, No, sir.
Okay. You were not present in the earlier classes?
Sir, I was not present in last class.
Okay. Nikhil Kushwaha,
Yes, sir. Yes,
can
sir. I can try. Like uh, in design challenges, like heterogeneity in this means that there are different types of software and hardware components that are connected together. And for example, in heterogeneity, like different types of hardware, like laptops and desktops and other things. And software also, there are various types of different software that are needed to be connected together so that they can perform a given task. In scalability, what happens is that, like, if already a distributed system is there, but suppose that a number of users are increasing or more number of things are to be added in the system, so can it be done in efficient manner? This thing comes under scalability. In openness, what is there that if we can, like, different parts are separate from different things, like this is,
okay.
okay. In security, that is like we have to see like other external unauthorized access are not present, and such all such things are seen under security. Like,
Okay.
and in failure handling, like if one component fails, then uh, that it remains limited to the that place only and does not affect the other ones. So the design has been that way.
Okay. Good.
Even if one point fails, the other points are still functioning. It should not affect the whole entire system. And transparency is what that we can see only the things that are required, not all the internal parts, how the things are working and all.
Okay. Good. Very good. Good, Nikhil.
Thank
Okay. So, as you guys can notice that I am repeating these things again and again. And I'm repeating this thing because of the reason, because in the whole subject, we will be revolving around these keywords only. Okay, so that is why we need to understand these concepts thoroughly. What exactly we mean by this concept or these keywords, and from where these keywords are arising. Okay, so these carry a lot of importance in this particular subject. So, design challenges of distributed system means the moment you have been asked to design a system which is distributed in nature, then these are the problems which are going to be there. Okay, and the moment you want to design this system, then you have to think of these problems and you have to find out the solutions of these problems, the problems of heterogeneity, the problem of scalability, openness, security, failure handling, transparency, and concurrency. Okay, so in the earlier classes we have talked about each one of them in detail. The moment we talk about heterogeneity of components, then the components will be hardware and software, and the heterogeneity will be in terms of networks, computer hardware, operating system, programming languages, even the in implementation style, right? So we have discussed in detail. So I'll pass on the earlier lecture. Then openness, it means that how exactly or how openly we are specifying the details of the implementation of our distributed system. If we have mentioned all the specification, or if we have published all the all the interfaces of the existing system, then we can say our system is open. Okay, so any kind of changes or any modification can be done easily to that system. So in order to have a good system, it has to have a notion of openness, where any component can be added or it can be redesigned in the variety of ways, and it is only possible when all the specification of the system has been defined, all the interfaces have been published openly. Okay, so this is possible in that scenario only. Fine. Then we have talked about security. Security means we are talking about the security of data and services, and it can be done in with the help of these three pillars, which are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality means you are protecting against disclosure to unauthorized individual. Okay, so only the authorized person can see the data, right? And in case of integrity, you want your data should not get altered or should not get deleted, right? However, anybody can see the data, but they must not be able to alter or delete the data, right? In availability, whatever data or services you're offering, that has to be available all the time. Okay, so this is what we mean by availability. So we will discuss this one as well. Then we will discuss one of the security aspect, which is denial of service, right? Then scalability. So we can see the system has to be scalable as per the growing demand of the user, right? So our system must support the notion of scalability as well. Okay. Then these are the scalability changes which we have discussed. Yeah, failure handling too have been discussed. So failure handling means a system may fail in the variety of ways, where the component itself can fail or a process inside the component may get failed, and the network which is binding number of components, it also may get failed or may get crashed. Okay, so how exactly those things are going to be handled, that we have to take care, right? Then concurrency, how a bigger task is going to be divided into number of subtasks, and how the allocation of those subtasks are going to be there among the processes, right? So how all those things are going to be managed will come under this particular concurrency. Okay. Then transparency, whatever the things which are taking place in a distributed system, that has to be masked from the original client. Okay, so client need not to worry about the detailing which are going to which are taking place inside a distributed system, right? For example, if you got number of server, then which server is particularly responsible to serve your request. So the client doesn't necessarily or should not worry about those details, right? Then these are the variety of transparencies. For example, the moment you are accessing some Google web pages, then you need not to worry that from which server you are getting the responses. Right? So Google is having number of servers at number of continents. So we are not at all interested that which server is giving us the response. Okay. So these are some of the varieties of transparency, right? So it may possible that you may have got, or the edge server we may have got number of replicas of a data. So which replica you are getting, it is totally unnecessary for a user to know that. The only thing which we want to know, or which in which we are interested, that we must able to get the data, right? From which server it is coming and which replica we are getting, we are not interested in that. Okay, so these are number of, we can say, variety of transparencies. Then we have started discussing models of distributed system. Am I right in the last class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I guess we have discussed what we mean by physical models, then we discuss what we mean by fundamental models, and we have also discussed what we mean by architectural models, right? So these are the three varieties through which we can model a distributed system. So the moment we talk about physical models, that means this particular model captures the hardware composition of a system in terms of computer and their interconnecting networks, right? So that means we have got the components again, and now we are assuming that they are connected, right? So this is a very fundamental model, okay, which says, okay, you have got number of components and those components are connected, and now these are the varieties of this model. In this particular type, we are only interested at whether the number of components are there or whether those components are connected or not. Okay. Now, as per the timeline, they have been categorized in these 4 types. The first one is baseline physical model. Okay, where we have assumed that number of components were there and those components were connected. Okay. Then in the second type, now it is somewhat analogous to your local area network LAN system. Okay, so over here only few systems were present and they were able to connect to each other, right? And in this one, now those number of systems, those number of connected systems have been increased, and now they are able to communicate each other, or you can say communicate, coordinate each other with much more ease. Okay, so now you can visualize the just example of your local area network. And over here in the third type, now we are talking about the network of networks. Okay, and in general terms, we call it as a internet, right? So it is nothing but the network of networks. And over here in the third type, the level of heterogeneity has been increased, right? Because in different networks, they may have their different architecture, they may have their different topologies and all. Okay, in a LAN, the level of heterogeneity is very low, but in case of internet, it is going to grow with a very high scale, right? So different networks may have got a different architecture, they may have got their different devices, they may have got their different operating systems. So level of heterogeneity has been increased in this one as compared to the previous one. Okay. Then in the fourth one, now the moment you talk about contemporary system, that means all the types of other computing paradigms have also been included. For example, we have included your mobile computing, we have included your ubiquitous computing, fog computing, then edge computing, cloud computing. So all those type of computing paradigm, the moment you include, then it becomes a contemporary distributed system. Okay, where the computation can be done on run, okay, or on go, and there are variety of computing paradigms are available in this type. Okay, so I hope you got the point regarding physical models. Now, let us move towards the fundamental models. So fundamental models take an abstract perspective in order to describe the solution to individual issues faced by most distributed system. So we have got a distributed system, and these are the most frequent thing which we have to deal with. Okay, so according to their problems, the modeling can be done into 3 prospects. The first one is interaction, the other one is failure, and the last one is security. Okay, so the moment you have designed any system, how the interaction is going to take place, that can be modeled with the help of this particular type. Okay, and all the failures within that system can be modeled with this type. Okay, and all the security aspect can be covered with the last one. Okay, so as per their fundamental characteristics or the inherent characteristic of system, the modeling can be done in these 3 varieties. Okay, and your last model, which is architectural model, over here we try to define the components, we can say the placement of the components and the relationship between those components. Okay, and in this model there can be 2 types of modeling. The first one is client server and the other one is peer to peer. Okay, so this one is itself has been discussed, okay, in sufficient detail. Now we are going to see the second one and third one. Okay, now if you just want to draw a comprehensive diagram of all the models, then this is how they will be placed. Okay, so we have discussed the types like physical models, fundamental models, and architectural models. Okay, and in terms of software architectures, the things can be seen. Okay, so those software architectures are often called as software layers as well, and it looks like this. So we'll discuss these things as well. So this is the overall summary of all the system models. Okay, we have discussed this one, and this one, right? Now let us discuss software architecture as well before moving further. So software architectures means now we are talking about a particular component, and in a particular component, this is the hierarchy that can be there. Okay, so at the bottom level, we'll be having the component itself and the associated networking components, right? And on the top of that, we are going to have the operating system, which will be sitting on the top of the underlying hardware or hardware components. And operating system may be Windows, Linux, or any other, right? And then these two all together will form a platform. Okay. And the moment you talk about distributed system, then this is what you will be adding a new layer. Okay, so a new layer which is called as a middleware will exist in distributed system. Okay, so in each component, this particular layer will be added additionally, and this particular layer will be responsible for managing your shared data. Okay, you can say shared data objects, and also how those shared data objects are going to be handled. Okay, how the multiple or the sharing processes are going to be handled, how the multimedia data is going to be handled, right? How the partitioning of the data is going to take place. Okay, so all those things are going to be taken care by this middleware, and the example of this middleware are your remote procedure call, remote method invocation, your common object request broker architecture, your Microsoft distributed component object model. Okay, so these are some of the example of the middleware. Okay, so the basic functions of this middleware are just to ensure the smooth functioning of the overall system. Okay, so how exactly that sharing of resources is going to be handled. So this is the main task of this middleware. Okay, then on the top of this middleware we have applications and services, okay, which will be using these platform and middleware. So this is how the software architecture looks like. Okay, so is there any doubt in the software architecture, students?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now let us move forward. So now we are going to discuss your fundamental models, right? Which are interaction model, failure model, and security model. So in interaction model, as we have discussed, it deals with the performance and with the difficulty of setting time limits in distributed system. Okay, and the example of this one can be your macro. So in interaction model, more often we are very much worried about the performance of the communication channel, and the performance of any communication channel can be measured with the help of these three parameters, which are latency, bandwidth, and jitter, right? So all of you already know what we mean by latency. Okay, so it's a delay the moment you are sending any message. So the moment a message is sent and is delivered, so in between time is termed as a latency, right? And the bandwidth means the total amount of information that can be transmitted over it in a given time. So this is called as a bandwidth. And jitter can be defined as a variation in the time taken to deliver a series of messages. It is not necessary at all that every time you send a message, always that message going to take the same amount of time. Okay, it depends upon the quality of the network. Sometimes it may get delivered faster, and some other time it may take some time. Okay, so the moment you deliver a series of messages, so the variation, the moment you you note the variation, so that variation is going to define the jitter of the network. Okay. Then the computer clocks and timing events, which clock we are going to use for that particular resource system, whether we are going for the physical clocks, whether we are going for the logical clocks. So all those we are going to discuss in detail in the coming lectures. Okay. And how the events are being timed. For example, we have got number of events, so which event will happen after which event. So all those ordering of events, how we are ensuring those ordering of events. So these things will be taken care under this model. Okay. Then for instruction, which model we are using, whether we are going for the synchronous one or asynchronous one. In synchronous one, we will be going for the time limits, whereas in case of asynchronous, there is not going to be any time limit for the message delivery in between the intended users. Okay. So this is what we mean by the two variations of instruction models. Okay. Then event ordering has already been defined. Okay. Then the failure model. So the failure model attempts to give a precise specification of the faults that can be exhibited by the processes and the communication channel. Okay. So we just try to model that what are the faults that can be there and where it can be. Okay. So there are two possibilities, that the fault can be exhibited by the processes or it may be exhibited by the communication channels. So overall, the goal of failure model to define a reliable communication and correct processes. Okay. So there can be variety of failures. For example, omission failure, arbitrary failures, or Byzantine failure, timing failures, masking failures, and reliability of one-to-one communication failure. Okay. So omission failure means this particular fault classified as omission failure, which refers to cases where or when a process or communication channel fails to perform actions that it is supposed to do. So whatever task has been given to a process or the communication channel, if they fail to perform that task, then you can call that there is a omission failure. Okay. So it can be there in the process and it can be there in the communication channel. Okay. Then arbitrary failures or the Byzantine failure, it is used to describe the worst possible failure. Why we are calling it as the worst possible? Because it can be of any type. For example, in a process, if you are encountered with an error which you are not expecting at all. Okay, for example, you are just run a program and suddenly your program has run out of bound. Okay, which you are not expecting at all. So you can say that it is a type of Byzantine failure. Okay, so in short, any unexpected type of error is characterized as arbitrary failure or Byzantine failure. So we are going to discuss this one in detail as well. Timing failures, if you assign a task to be performed within a particular time limit or a communication channel to deliver a message within a time limit, if they fail to do so, then you can say that there is a timing failure. Okay. So we'll discuss how do we measure the timings and all. Then masking failures, the moment where you are expecting some sort of failure and the moment those failures have occurred, then how we are going to deal with it, how we are going to mask it. So that type of things are going to cover in this particular type. It is called as a masking failure. For example, in Java, where we just go for the try and catch block, right? So where we do expect some sort of exceptions, right? And then we write a code to handle that exception, right? So it may be possible that in certain system at certain places, some set of failures are expected. So what we can do, we can come up with a solution to handle those sort of failures. And that particular procedure is called as a masking. Okay. So this thing is also going to be there in failure model. Then reliability of one-to-one communication, where we talk about or we think about the validity of a communication and the integrity of our communication. Okay, so that the data can be delivered to the other place without compromising with the integrity and the validity. So these are some of the things which are going to be taken care under failure model. Then security model. So as we discussed that it deals with the possible threats to processes and communication channels. So the moment we consider this modeling or this model, that means with this one, we talk about the secure channels. Okay, and these secure channels, what they will do, they will make our data secure against the possible threats. Okay, so the moment you talk about security, the moment you talk about security models, then these are the things which are going to be there. So of course, we'll be having the number of components, and of course, we'll be having a shared pool of resources, right? And all those resources are going to be available to all the components or all the clients in the form of shared objects, right? So how those shared objects are going to be protected, that we have to think of, right? Then securing processes and their interaction. Of course, with the number of components, we will be having number of processes. So how the interaction between those number of processes are going to be secure, that also we have to think of, right? Then the enemy. Okay, the moment about enemy, that means they may process, they may introduce the threats to processes and communication channels. So what we can do, we can just model a system. Okay, and in that model we can think of, if the enemy is there, then what are the types of attack or what are the types of attack that can be placed by the enemy. Okay, and at what level it can be placed at the processes, and it can be placed on the communication channel. So on the enemy point of view, what we can do or what the things can be done, that we can model the overall system, that how the system can be made secure. If the enemy is posing any threat on the processes, or if they are posing any challenge or threats to the communication channel. Okay, so in this prototype, we think from the point of view of the enemy in order to secure the resources. Then defeating security threats. Security threats. So in this particular case, we are assuming that the enemy is trying to attack us, and now we have to make sure the variety of ways through which we can secure the resources. Okay, so we can introduce the confidentiality with the help of cryptography and shared secret. Okay, so we can use some encryption and decryption algorithm so that the confidentiality of the data can be maintained. Okay, then the authentication schemes can be introduced so that we can ensure that the only authentic persons are using the resources. Fine. And in secure channels, where we can make sure that the data is being transmitted from one place to the another place, and in between the data is not changing at all, right? So data is being transmitted to the other place in a secure way. Okay, so this is how we can defeat the security threats which is being imposed or which can be imposed by the enemy. And then the other possible threat from the enemy can be denial of service and the mobile code. Okay, where the attacker can disrupt the smooth functioning of the services. Okay, and the best example of it is, it can be denial of service. Okay, where the attacker may ensure that the legitimate user are not able to access the intended services smoothly, right? So there can be two types of such threat. The first one is denial of services, and the other one is mobile code. So we are going to discuss this one in detail as well. And of course, we can use the security models in order to model all these things. Okay, so these are the things about your security model. So I hope you have got the detailing of all these three models. So is there any doubt?
No, sir.
All the students?
No, sir. No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Keep speaking. Okay. Otherwise, I'll feel like that I'm talking to a wall. Atishay, Jen, did you get the concept? निखिल,
Yes, sir.
आज आपको मेल आया कि नहीं आया?
आया सर.
आया, चलो कॉन्ग्रेचुलेशंस, है ना? After a lot of struggle, finally you got a mail.
Sir.
Okay. There is one more thing. All of you are requested to join in the first 10 minutes only, because I download the attendance list in the first 10 minutes. If you join afterwards, then it may possible that your attendance may get missed when I cross check the attendance. Okay. So make sure that you join the class in the first 10 minutes. Okay, fine. So I hope you have got all the detailing regarding these models. Now we are going to discuss the architectural models. Okay, and there are two types of architectural models. The first one is client server and the other one is peer-to-peer model. So anybody who can tell me what we discussed regarding architectural models? What happens in architectural models?
Sir, we specify the components and the relation between them.
Right. So whatever components we have got in our distributed system, we just try to define the role of the components and how those components are going to be placed, right? And the relationship which is going to be there in between those components. So we are going to take care regarding all those aspects in architectural models. Fine. So for example, we have got two components, and the first component may act as a client and the other one may act as a server. And there can be one of the scenario where all the components are behaving same, right? So the first one is considered as a classic case of your client server model, and the later one is considered as a peer-to-peer model. Okay, so we'll discuss both the models in detail. Fine. So your client server model. So in the client server model, processes take on the roles of being clients or server. In particular, client processes interact with individual server processes in potentially separate host computer in order to access shared resources that they manage. So this is the typical diagram. So as we discussed that we may have a number of components. Okay, at the client side, we can see we've got 3 components. At the server side, we have designated a component as a server. Okay, so the moment we talk about a server, that means you have placed resources to this particular component. Okay, so resources have been placed with these components, and now all these components are seeking access to the resources which have been held by this component. Okay, so this component who is currently holding the resources or who is in the position to serve or to help the other components of the client is termed as or is called as a server. Okay, for example, it may have a database and all these clients and all these devices are looking for getting access to that database. Okay, and of course there has to have some sort of interconnection in between these devices. Fine. So in client server model, a particular component may be or has to be in a position where it can serve to the other components. Fine. So the components which have assumed such role is called as a server, while the other components are called as a clients. Is that clear? The students?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in peer-to-peer model, as we have discussed, that in this particular type, all the components are having the same role to perform. Okay. So, for example, there is no server in this particular arrangement. All the components treat the other components with the same privileges and with the same capacity. Okay, so this is one of the such network where we can see that all the components are of same type or they are connected in a network with the same capacity. Okay, so in this particular arrangement there is no server. Fine. And apart from that, if we try to compare in between your client server architecture and your peer-to-peer architecture of your peer-to-peer model, then your client server model, we talk about the scalability. Then client server model is very much scalable, or you can say it can be scaled very easily. Okay, while your peer-to-peer model is not very easy to scale. Okay, so this is one of the major difference. Okay, now the second difference between these two models is in case of the first one, it can suffer with the bottleneck problem. If the link between this component and the server get failed, then the overall system will get lost, right? While in this case, if one of the system may get failed, even in that case, the rest of the system may still work, right? So this is the another difference, or you can say another significant difference in between these two types of model. So you must have to remember these 2 points regarding these two models. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So,
sir.
a single point of
Yes,
failure
sir.
is possible in client server model, but the same is not true in case of your peer-to-peer model. Fine. Now, the client server model can be implemented in the variety of ways, and we are going to discuss each one of them in detail. So, in architectural model, we have got two models, client server and peer-to-peer. So now we are going to see the variations of client server model. So this particular model can be implemented in the variety of ways, and this is the first variety, which is called as a multiple server. Okay, so placing multiple servers to handle to load properly, and multiple servers can be placed as per the role functionality such as web server, file server, database server, etc. So it is very much possible that whatever system has taken the responsibility of server, that particular server may experience some load. Okay, for example, this particular server was initially designed to handle the request of 10 clients, or let's say 100 clients. But with the span of time over the period of time, now the number of clients have scaled up to 10,000. So this particular server now is not in a position to handle the request of all those 10,000 clients. So what this server can do, it can introduce some more server in it. Okay, or you can say some more servers can be attached with the existing one. Okay, so now a single server which was generally handling the 10,000 requests. Now the load will be divided into these 3 servers. Okay, so the moment a server is being had with the other number of server, you can say that the multiple server have been placed to serve the clients. Okay, and this particular type of arrangement is called as a multiple server, where a original server is made up of several number of servers. Okay, so this particular client will see that he is interacting, or that this particular client is interacting with a single server, but in the background the number of servers are collaborating with each other in order to serve this particular client. Okay, so did you get the concept of multiple servers?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you must have to remember that the communicating client will always get the impression that it is dealing with a single server, while in the background that single server is actually comprises of number of servers. Okay, and what can be done in the server side, that these servers can take up the responsibility as per their behavior. Okay, for example, a server can be split up as per their functionality. For example, it can be a database server, it can be a file server, it can be a web server. So there are variety of jobs which are there at the server side. So as per those functionality as well, these new server can be added. Okay, so this is how a variation is there in a typical client server model, where a number of server can be placed in place of a single server. Okay, then the second variety is web proxy servers. So web proxy servers are not the actual server, but they act as a server to the client. Okay, so the client originally interacts with this server, and this particular server then will interact with the original servers. Okay, so why there is the need of this type of server? This particular type of servers are generally used to ensure the local policies of the administrator. Okay, or with the help of these servers, the load of the network is also managed, the performance of the network is also increased. Okay, so these are the primary functionalities of the proxy server. So what we achieve with these proxy server, we achieve performance, we may achieve performance, okay, and the better administration can be done. Okay, and of course we may also implement some local policies. For example, which data can be accessed by which persons, okay, or which particular network can access which resources, right? So what content is accessible or is open to what type of client. So all these things can be implemented in the proxy server. Okay, so overall you can say that it is intended to reduce the load of the actual server, and along with it, it can also enforce some local policies. Okay, is that clear?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then cache servers. So the diagram itself tells a lot. Cache server means in this type of arrangement, the data which are very frequently being accessed from the web server are being placed at some intermediate place. We call it the cache server, okay, or a cache. So all the frequent data is being placed at this particular place. So the moment any client want to access some data, so first the data will be checked at this place. If the data is available, then it will be served directly from here. Okay, the interaction with the original server will not be there if the data is available. So with this arrangement, the overall performance of the system will get increased, right? So Suppose if some client is trying to access some data and that data is not available with the cache, then that request will then forward it to the actual server, and then the server will respond along with the intended data. Okay, and then that data will be taking the place of the less frequent used data. Okay, so we may have the variety of data, and the newly accessed data will be taking the place of the less frequent data from this particular place. Okay, so this is how the things happens in cache servers. So cache servers places frequently used or access data in cache memory to provide the fast access to the data. Okay, just this particular type of arrangement basically aims to provide the better performance. Okay, then the mobile code. So in this particular time, it downloads to data interactive code to the client system, and the client gets the impression that it is interacting with the actual server. So as you can see with the help of the diagram, in this particular arrangement, first client get access to the web server, and then whatever data or whatever thing this client wants from the web server, that particular thing gets downloaded to the local machine or to the machine of the client. Okay, and in this particular thing, it is going to be a applet code. Okay, so as you can see now, that particular thing has been downloaded at the client's place. So from the next time onwards, the moment client try to have the access to that code, the access will be provided by that applet code on the client machine itself. This time, the access of that code will not be provided directly from the website. Okay, and the very much practical example of this type of arrangement can be a chess game. Okay, very oftenly what happens the moment you try to play a chess game online, so that code of chess is generally downloaded to a system. Okay, so what happens then, the moment you try to play the chess, you are actually playing the chess game with the locally downloaded code, not with the actual server. And if there is any change happens at the applet code, then that change is being pushed by the web server to the applet code which has been downloaded at the client. Okay, so I hope you would have got the concept of mobile code. So in short, there are various possibility where the code in which the client is interested can be downloaded at the client place, and next point onwards, the moment client try to get the access to that code, that access can be provided from the client machine itself. Okay, so this is the primary motive of this sort of arrangement. Okay, so what happens with this arrangement, the overall interaction gets improved. Okay, the performance of the overall interaction gets improved a lot. Okay, any doubt with this arrangement? Okay, then the mobile agent. So a mobile agent travels to some or all nodes in the network to perform some set of operations. So let's say we have got 4 number of nodes, and in this particular arrangement, we try to form a code, and that code will move from node to node in order to perform certain number of tasks. Okay, over here we are just talking about a code, and that code can travel to each node and can perform some number of tasks, right? So what will happen? Let us just try to understand this particular organization or this particular arrangement with the help of example. Suppose in our college, NIT Raipur, we have got 50 number of system in our lab, right? And now what we want to do, we just want to get the configuration of each and every system. Okay, so there can be one possibility where you can go to each and every system and manually check the specification of every system, right? And the second one, since all the system or all the nodes are connected with the network, then you can design a code, and what that code will do, that code will go to each and every system and then run a specific task. Okay, and the task is to just get the specification, right? So over here, what has been done, a code has been designed, and actually that code is going to each and every system and doing the task, right? So this is the basic idea of the mobile agent. Okay, and with the help of this mobile agent, some specific task can be performed at all the nodes in a system. Okay, did you get the concept?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
For example,
Yes, sir.
good, good. So it may possible that in a network or in a computer lab, you all may be interested to install a particular software. Okay, so one way may be that we will go to each and every system and then install a software, right? The copy of software is already placed in each system. We just need to start that program of installation, right? So we can design a code, and that code will go to each and every computer and will start the installation of that particular software. So the things like that can be done very easily with this particular type of variation of client server model. Okay, so this is again very useful. Then there is another variation called as a thin clients. So in case of thin clients, we have got very limited resources through which they can access the network server where actual programs execution take place. So again, just try to assume a scenario. For example, our lab. So what may happen that we may have got some workstation, and a lot of things can be accommodated within that workstation. Okay. Now there can be number of thin clients, and with the help of those thin clients, we can access all the facilities or all the resources which are available with that workstation. Okay, so these thin clients will be having a web interface or a lightweight Windows interface. Okay, so with these thin clients, we'll be having, let's say, a keyboard, a mouse, and just your monitor. Okay, and a very limited processor and the RAM. Okay, so the point which I'm trying to make is that you are having only the interacting things or interacting devices. The actual computation or the actual things are going to take place at the compute server. Okay, so you are just watching the things, or you are just providing the inputs with the help of these very limited devices. Okay, and those things can be just for example, your monitor, keyboard, mouse, and all. Okay, so actual computation is being taking place at the compute server. Okay, and the other one is your network computers. In this particular arrangement, what happens in the earlier case, only we were having a thin client, okay, which had got a very limited hardware resources, and with that limited hardware resources, we were able to get all the actual things which were taking place in the compute server, right? But in this particular arrangement, now we have got the systems which are very much capable of doing things, right? But it may possible that there are things which are still inaccessible to these systems. Okay, or you can say these systems are not technically qualified to handle some of the resources. So those resources can be placed at the central place, and this sort of arrangement is called as a network computers. For example, let's say we have got a licensed version of a particular software, right? We have bought only one license of that. And in a network, we have got 5 number of systems, or let's say 3, 6, or 8 number of systems. Although we have just bought a one license, now all these 8 systems want to get access to that license. Okay, so what can be done? That license can be installed in the system, and that can be extended to all these 8 systems. Okay, so this is one of the example. So what happens? Let's say the moment this particular system try to get access to that software, that piece of software can be downloaded to the system. The moment this particular system want to operate on that software. Okay, so this system can make a request to the central place, and the overall thing can be downloaded to the system, and the things then can be executed, or the task can be performed. Okay, the moment task is over, the things again get transferred to the central place. Okay, so as per the need, the things can be downloaded from these 8 systems from the central place. This is the model. Okay, and the overall technical things are being managed by the system. For example, if the system has got, let's say, Linux or Windows, so all the updations or all the technical things will be managed by the system. Okay, so this is what happens. So for example, this system is interested in using MS Office 2007. This is interested in using MS Office 2010, 13, okay, 19. So all these things can be accessed on demand from this central place. Okay, so this is one of the examples where the thing as per the need can be downloaded. Okay, is there any doubt?
No, sir.
Sir.
Okay, well, in the good. So while in the early case, the things were not being downloaded, rather the things were actually taking place at the original server. Okay, fine. So this is what we are going to discuss in this class. So rest of the things are going to be covered in the next class. So I hope all of you have got the concept, and in case of any query, we can ask now. Any queries, students?
Not yet, sir.
Or I'll end the class.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, can you please specify the textbook?
Yeah, so test book, which I have just explained you, I'll forward these slides to all of you. Okay, initially I have just text. Yeah, so these are the books which you can refer for this particular subject. Okay. Any other questions, students? No?
No, sir.